Baby, you are gonna go broke showing turkeys like these.
It's turkey time. Gobble, gobble.
Hi, my name is Mike Myers. Perhaps you recognize me from my recent motion picture, Wayne's World. Thanks. As you can see, I'm on the set of my new film in which I play a young fellow named Charlie, who gets a little more than he bargained for. For example, there's suspense. Have you heard of this case? Mrs. X. She murders her husband on her honeymoon, then she changes her identity and marries again.
I never heard of it, so what?
I think I'm dating Mrs. X.
The Justice Department reports an alarming rise in the number of poisoning murders across the United States.
It's a smart drink to improve your brain power. You'll like it, Charlie.
Thank you, no. There's action.
Charlie, there's something I've been meaning to tell you.
She's a killer.
Charlie, she is not a killer.
And of course, there's plenty of romance.
What do you look for in a girl you date?
I know everyone always says sense of humor, but I'd really have to go with breast size. So, as you can see, it has all the elements of a truly great motion picture. Oh, did I mention the axe murderer?
Hello, sweetheart.
Missed me, darling?
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Let's Talk Turkeys. I'm your host, Movie Miss, and Drive-In Dave is off this week. So for Valentine's Day, I thought I would do one of my favorite romantic comedies. And to join me in this discussion is somebody who I was shocked to find out this was one of their favorite romantic comedies as well. Please welcome back to the show, my husband, Mike. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello, my lovely wife. I realize, yes, this is not a comic book movie, but it is a movie I've enjoyed since I saw it in the theater in 1993.
Yes, I saw it in the theater as well. And I remember thinking to myself, I wasn't super familiar with Mike Myers. I think he'd only done SNL and like Wayne's World at this point. And I remember thinking he's got a real knack for comedy, his delivery of things, even though they're silly and campy and over the top sometimes, it's super believable that he just is this goofball that acts like this.
Yeah, it was the part of the early 90s kind of Canadian comedy invasion. You had guys like Mike Myers and Jim Carrey and probably half a dozen other guys whose names escape me at this point. Yeah, it just seemed like we had a lot of people from Canada sneaking across the border to try to make people laugh.
So the movie we're discussing in honor of Valentine's Day, like I said, is So I Married an Axe Murderer from 1993. It is a turkey, Rotten Tomato critic score of 53%, audience of 68. So audience is a little better. Directed by Thomas Schlamme.
Thomas Schlamme? Rhymes with salami? Yes. He's been a television director for a lot of his career. He did a lot of work with Aaron Sorkin.
Oh.
And he is married to Christine Lottie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So this was written by Robbie Fox. It looks like Mike Myers and Neil Malarkey also worked on it. They wrote a bit, and then after some arbitration, they took it to the WGA and they rejected them credit on the film. But it seems to me this reeks of Mike Myers' comedy, like his weird sense of humor.
A lot of the bits, yeah, just seemed like things that he would have either written or even ad-libbed.
That's what I thought too. So it had a $20 million budget, but it only did 11.5 at the box office.
Everyone I knew at the time really liked this movie. I was surprised it didn't do better.
Yes, it's one of those things where I find a lot of people don't know this movie. And over the years, I've gone out of my way. Like I had the DVD, and that was one thing when I first met you. You had the DVD and I was like, holy shit, it's meant to be. He has the same bizarre sense of humor I do. But I would use that DVD and loan it out and give you like, you guys have to watch this movie. It's so good. And got lots of people into it over the years.
Yeah, well, like his later movie, Austin Powers, which wasn't a huge success in the initial release. When DVDs became a thing, kind of mid 90s, that movie and this movie had like a second life.
Yes, a lot of movies tend to do that. They get that second life on home video. Did you know that it was, you probably did, because even though you're not from California, it was shot all in California, San Francisco, Oakland, even the Alcatraz bit is at Alcatraz.
Yeah, I've been to San Francisco. I didn't actually stay. I stayed in Oakland, though. I was there to see a Raiders game.
So you probably recognize some stuff.
Well, who doesn't recognize the Golden Gate Bridge and Transamerica Tower, at least?
So top billed cast for this is Mike Myers, of course, and we have Nancy Travis, Anthony LaPaglia, Amanda Plummer, and Brenda Fricker. We get to everybody else as we go. I did find it interesting that Alan Arkin is uncredited, and he's got a pretty substantial part in this movie, and yet he was uncredited. I wonder why. So IMDb plot: a San Francisco poet who fears commitment suspects his girlfriend may have a knack for killing off significant others. So the DVD cover art for this, I just wanted to mention, is a little misleading because I got like the special edition re-release, a few years later, and there's really not that thing and nothing extra about it really on the disc. But the cover has Nancy Travis standing behind Mike Myers holding an axe behind her back. And I was like, if you've seen the movie, that's so stupid to put that right on the cover like that. Thought I'd mention that.
Just saying, they're probably trying to sell it to people who haven't seen the movie as well. So,
all right, let's jump into the plot. So I am going to say, spoiler alert, obviously, if you haven't seen this movie and you just listen to the show, I very much appreciate you. However, you might want to pause, go watch the movie and come back because we are going to totally spoil it for you, like starting immediately. There's going to be no mystery here.
Do you really have to say spoiler alert for a 30-year-old movie?
Well, yeah. A lot of people still don't know about this movie, and that's shocking to me.
But they're all millennials and they're jerks.
Wow, we just lost some listeners there. Thanks. All right, so the movie begins with opening credits, and that's the other thing I was going to say. The song here is "There She Goes." I even had the CD, I still do, the CD soundtrack for this movie. I love all of the music in this movie and the poetry, which is on the CD. Did you have the soundtrack, or did you like the soundtrack for this?
I only know the soundtrack from watching the actual movie.
Fair.
Yes, I didn't really buy a lot of music.
Well, the song "There She Goes" is playing, and that becomes their basic theme song, for them. It's in a lot of their scenes throughout the whole movie. We get to see nighttime aerial shots of San Francisco, and it's gorgeous.
Can I go back to the theme for just a second? The version that they're playing is by a band called the Boo Radleys.
Yes!
I just hate that name. I think it's just pretentious douchebags. Oh, look, we read To Kill a Mockingbird. We're cool. Screw you.
Oh my gosh. I thought their name was funny, but I couldn't tell you one other hit that they had, one other song by them. I have no idea. So we get title card and we zoom in on the city, and immediately it's happy feelings, good vibes. I'm tapping my feet. It's like, okay, here we go, movie. And it's just so fun right at the beginning. We zoom in on an exterior entrance of Rhodes Cafe, and it's very busy. It's buzzing. I was surprised.
Clearly they're busy because the neon sign says that they serve Henry Weinhard's, everyone's favorite local Portland, Oregon brand.
That's true. So we get shots here, which is so fun, with like a steady cam following a waitress who's near the door inside. And we're basically the camera on her tray that she's holding in front of her. And it's this awesome tracking shot of going from picking up a dirty mug, taking it back to the back bar area. They're washing it, they dry it, then they immediately refill it with a fresh cappuccino for somebody, put it back on the tray, and then as she's walking with it, the song is still going, credits are still going. I appreciate credits over movie, but I noticed, and it's irritating to me, this mug is so full that the foam is right at camera eye level, and it's like shaking, and I'm waiting for it to spill, and it never does. I'm just weird, I know.
Yeah, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I will say after seeing this movie, I did go with some friends to a place in Portland called the Rimsky-Korsa Coffee House.
Oh, really?
Went there a couple of times. It's people drinking coffee and playing indie music and weird poetry readings, which I didn't really care for.
Okay, yeah, it's not really my scene either. This place, this Rhodes Cafe. Also, watching them do the mug the way they did, where they pick it up and hand wash it and dry it and refill it, and that's not hygienic at all to me. I was like, no, don't do that. Run it through the dishwasher.
James Michael Tyler would be appalled at the cleanliness and service of this coffee house.
I don't know who that is, but okay.
Of course, James Michael Tyler is famous for playing Gunther on Friends, which this reminded me of, and it predates Friends by a full year.
Ah, that's true. So now the mug gets taken through, credits are still rolling, to the back of the cafe, and it gets handed to Mike Myers just as the song ends and the credits end. It's perfect timing. This whole opening to me, brilliant. And I'm like, okay, movie, let's go. It's a great opening. So the first line of dialogue in this movie is Charlie, and that's Mike Myers, holding this giant cappuccino with two hands. And he's telling the waitress that there's been a mistake. He ordered the large cappuccino. It's right. So funny.
It's essentially a giant soup bowl with a handle on it.
Yes, it's amazing. And it's such a funny joke, especially if you haven't seen this movie before. You don't expect that. The first line of dialogue, I'm here for it. So he's sitting there with a couple people on a couch. He's clearly a regular here. Everybody knows him. Having some issues with your headset, we swapped out to a different mic. So hopefully this will work better for you. Let's give it a try.
Oh no, I'm the same mic.
Luckily for me. All right. So after this first line of dialogue with the joking about the larger cup, he's sitting with some people. His friend Tony is there, and that's
Anthony LaPaglia,
who I love so much. And I was so happy he's in this. And I will say immediately, their chemistry together, I don't know if they really got along well on set or not, because I heard Mike Myers was a little bit of a diva on this shoot, but they seem like they've been lifelong friends. I 100% buy their chemistry in this movie.
Yeah, well, Mike Myers is kind of known to be a diva on every shoot. He's what they call quirky. I'm pretty sure it's Hollywood code for asshole. Don't quote me on that.
I think you're right. In this, if you watch them though, their facial expressions when they're in scenes together are phenomenal. So Tony's sitting here with him in white platform shoes, black socks, loose-fitting bell-bottom, green crazy pattern pants, a ruffle Seinfeld pirate shirt, and then a blue jacket and a hat which has some fluffy trim on it, like a little boa wrapped around it. And of course, Charlie asks him, "Why do you look like Huggy Bear from Starsky and Hutch?" I just love it's a dated reference because that was a show in the 70s, but it's so fucking funny.
He's the white Antonio Fargas, who was the guy that played Huggy Bear on Starsky and Hutch, and was later played in the movie by Snoop Dogg.
I didn't see the movie, but I am familiar with the show.
Nobody saw the movie. It was horrible. And I like Ben Stiller. There's a movie for your show.
That means I have to actually watch it. No, thank you. So it's funny because Tony tells him the reason he's dressed like that is he's an undercover cop trying to look hip. And Charlie's pointing out like, yeah, that's obviously what you look like. So bad job. And then my question was, you're undercover here at this coffee shop? What are you doing?
He's practicing for an actual assignment.
That has to be it because he just so wants to be in the action. Yeah. So Charlie tells Tony not to dress like a circa 1970s pimp when he comes to his parents' house tomorrow night. And it cracked me up because he adds the point, don't do that because my parents are a little eccentric. Two things. if they're eccentric, wouldn't they appreciate him looking weird like that?
Possibly. I know his mother really appreciates him.
But two, they clearly are like best friends for a long time. He's been to the parents' house before. So that line was clearly for our benefit, the audience. That just kind of irritates me when movies do that. It's like, he didn't really need to do that.
Right. No, he could have dressed normal and then gone to his undercover gig owning that record store.
Yeah, I was going to mention that later, but that's a good point. So Charlie and Tony continue to talk while a carrot top looking dude delivers a poem about being abducted by aliens. And we don't get to hear it because we're listening to Charlie's conversation. But I think this actor was on Friends later.
He was on Friends. This guy had a big run in 90s sitcoms.
Okay.
Friends, Seinfeld, Ellen, and probably 3 or 4 others.
Yeah, I knew he looked familiar. So Tony asks Charlie what poem he's going to do tonight. And Charlie says, oh, the woman, woman, woman poem. And Tony asks, why did you break up with Sherry again, your last girlfriend? Charlie says, because she's a thief. She stole his cat.
He doesn't specifically say that she stole his cat, because I have it in my notes as Sherry, thief/cat murderer. He just says he hasn't seen his cat since she left.
True. So Tony, being the great friend that he is to Charlie, points out that every time Charlie meets a girl, he tries to come up with a paranoid reason why he needs to break up with them because he's afraid of commitment.
Like his girlfriend Jill, who was in the mafia, apparently.
Oh, yes. I was like, what? Yeah. And then Pam, who smelled like soup.
Specifically, beef vegetable soup.
So weird. So again, in my notes, I have their chemistry, their facial expressions during this conversation. Everything sucks you right in, and you're totally on board with them in this world.
Yeah, Anthony LaPaglia has a look on his face where he's kind of smiling all the time, just waiting because maybe it's an unscripted thing from Mike Myers, like what's coming out of this guy's mouth next, because it's funny.
Yes, he does that Seinfeld thing where he's smirking, half smiling all the time because he looks like he's ready to laugh at any moment. So Charlie gets called up to the stage and his poem is set to music. There's like a 3-piece band up there with him. And there's a picture of his ex-girlfriend, Sherry, up on the screen behind him. And one of the lines is, she was a thief. You gotta believe. She stole my heart and my cat. I love it so much.
He's not really sure, though. It's more like, she stole my heart and my cat. Like a question.
Yeah, it's so funny. And then the poem goes on for another verse or so. He says something about Saturday morning cartoon women.
Specifically, he mentions Betty Rubble and Josie and the Pussycats.
Why is that funny?
Because they're both horrible cartoons. Well, I like the Flintstones. Josie and the Pussycats was a horrible cartoon, but it did have Cheryl Ladd as the voice of Melanie.
Oh, okay. So you know that. That's a thing you know.
That's a thing I know.
I learn new stuff about you every day. So at the end, he says, hey, Jane, get me off this crazy thing called love. And then he blows out a candle that's sitting right next to him there as like to signify the end of the poem and the relationship. And I thought, how clever. This movie is so fun and clever, like immediately.
Woman! Whoa, man! Whoa, man! She was a thief, you gotta believe. She stole my heart and my cat. Betty, Judy, Josie, and those hot pussycats. They make me horny, Saturday morning. Girls of cartoons won't leave me in ruins. I want to be Betty's Barney. Hey, Jane, get me off this crazy thing called love.
Also, I've been speculating after watching this movie again. Charlie doesn't really seem to have any other job. They just say he's a poet. So he lives in San Francisco, which isn't cheap. He has his own place. Does he own the coffee shop just so he can do poetry there?
Oh my God, that would be amazing. We don't know. I like that. So the next day, Charlie is driving in his little Carmen Ghia up and down the steep, hilly part of San Francisco.
Yeah, not the right car for San Francisco. That's an accident waiting to happen because those hills are going to be really hard on that crappy 4-cylinder Volkswagen engine.
That's what I thought too. I was like, wow. So he goes to a little shop called Meats of the World, where they have all different meat cuts, but they also have other little grocery items that seem to be imported.
Not only do they have meat cuts, but this is also where you get the movies Meet Cute.
They missed a naming opportunity of the shop there. Inside the shop, he is greeted by the owner/butcher and sole employee in a busy San Francisco shop. That's Harriet, and that's Nancy Travis. He orders one haggis and tells her, just offers the information that I want the haggis because it's for my parents and they're Scottish. Her face, when he's just standing there trying to be awkwardly polite ordering the haggis, it goes through about 4 different emotions. And then that's when I was like paying attention for the notes for the show. And I'm like, wow, I never really paid attention to this in all these years. Nancy Travis, her face in this movie in every single scene is telling you something. It is telling you what's in her head without saying a word. She was the perfect choice for this movie because also they have great chemistry.
As far as her expressions, all I can think of watching through the whole movie, she always looks like she's on the verge of tears.
Oh, I didn't think so.
Yeah, always looks like she's about to cry. Her face is always kind of red.
Hey, some of us just have that problem, sir.
Nancy Travis is an attractive woman. Not really my cup of tea, but yeah, I couldn't really picture anyone else in this.
So next, Charlie goes to his parents' house with that haggis. We hear as he's pulling up, the Bay City Rollers are playing that Saturday Night song or whatever it's called. It's like the song everybody knows them for.
The song is called Saturday Night.
Okay. And we see Charlie's father is inside, and this is Stuart McKenzie, and he is played by Mike Myers in makeup.
Shades of the upcoming Austin Powers movie.
So much. That's the other thing I wanted to throw out there is that people who are late to the game on this movie and they've already experienced Austin Powers and all that, a couple people would go back and watch this and then say, oh, he's just copying or ripping off himself or whatever. And I want, well, excuse me, this one was first. This was before Fat Bastard and all that.
Also, it has been proved in court, Fogarty versus Fogarty, that you cannot plagiarize yourself.
The more you know. So Charlie's father here, he is admiring and dusting off his Scottish Wall of Fame in the house with the plaques.
If you were wondering why a man of his age is listening to the Bay City Rollers, because they're a Scottish group.
I did not put that together. Oh my gosh.
They wore plaid all the time, even though they weren't all actually Scottish. They were Scottish based.
So all I could see on this wall of a lot of photos was Sir Henry Lauder, Sheena Easton,
Sean Connery,
Alexander Graham Bell, Jackie Stewart,
famous race car driver.
Some other ones I couldn't tell what they were.
Pretty sure Rod Stewart's there.
Probably. I just laughed. I was like, holy crap, this guy's really into his Scottish heritage.
Yeah, even though he's Canadian, he's, of Scottish descent, Mike Myers.
In real life?
Yes, he did several. If you go look at his SNL years, it comes up several times. There's a sketch called Mackenzie Paper Towel Theater.
Oh.
There's a sketch with Patrick Stewart, a Scottish therapist. His solution to everything is, let's get pissed.
So we also meet Charlie's mom in this scene, and this is May, and she's played by Brenda Fricker.
Oscar winner, Brenda Fricker. You get 2 Oscar winners in this movie. You get Brenda Fricker, who has won an Oscar, and you get Alan Arkin, who will later win an Oscar.
Okay. The only thing I'd ever seen Brenda Fricker in was, I believe, Angels in the Outfield.
She was in Angels in the Outfield.
Right? Where she runs the foster home for the boys, for Joseph Gordon-Levitt and the other boys. Yeah, and I just remember really liking her. And so she's so good in this. We also meet Charlie's younger brother, William, and they call him Heed, H-E-E-D.
Which is Scottish for head, apparently.
Yeah, it's so funny the way he says it. Heed. So they get ready for Charlie's arrival, and we see Charlie's dad dancing a little to the Bay City Rollers, and they're getting a drink. And we can see on the couch that Tony's already there.
His dad dancing around in his boxers and the socks with the garters on them, suspenders or
Yes.
braces, I guess, if you're from the UK.
It's so funny. He's always caught with his, no pants. But again, a note to chemistry, Brenda Fricker and then Mike Myers as playing his dad, they are so adorable together. And I totally buy it. I buy the relationship, the way they are with each other. Anyway, so I was saying, though, that Tony's already there. So that tells you also about their friendship. He's so tight with Charlie and his family that he can just show up. That Charlie doesn't even have to be there.
He's there watching a soccer game with the old man.
So Charlie arrives and he gives his mom the haggis, and they go in the kitchen together. And she says she hates haggis, but your father likes it. He'll eat it. I was like, oh, that's nice of her to make something for him. So then we cut to Tony laughing all the way through Charlie's dad, explaining to him about the secret society of the 5 wealthiest people in the world, known as the Pentaverate, who run everything in the world, including the newspapers. And they meet triannually at a secret mansion in Colorado known as the Meadows.
Now, was that triannually every 3 years or 3 times a year?
I don't know, but I just thought it was funny that if it's a secret, how does he know about it?
Because he reads the paper.
In quotes, the paper. So Charlie's dad says the members of this Pentaverate are the Queen, the Vatican, the Gettys, the Rothschilds, and Colonel Sanders before he went tits up. Does that mean before he died?
Yes, if you've never heard that expression. And for the record, Harlan Sanders passed away in 1980.
God, I thought that was so funny. How do you know about it if it's a secret, first of all? But anyway, he rants about how he hated the Colonel with his beady eyes.
His wee beady eyes.
Everything he says is so funny to me in this movie. Charlie pops his head out of the kitchen and he asks, how can you hate the Colonel? His dad says because he puts an addictive chemical in his chicken that makes you crave it fortnightly. I don't know why that's so funny to me.
Yeah, when I worked there as a teenager in my early 20s, we kept it in the back, and if sales were slow, you would just double the amount.
Oh, so you are confirming the existence of the addictive chemical.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
So Charlie's mom asks him if he'd like a juice because she's juicing everything now with her new Juice Tiger juicer. She's on the weekly World News Garth Brooks juice diet. And the way she says it with her accent, I have to pause it and giggle every single time.
Which I would point out, Brenda Fricker is Irish, but her Scottish accent is on point.
It is. It's so good. I would never have known.
I'm on the Garth Brooks juice diet.
It's so good. And she's got the little paper stuck to her fridge with Garth Brooks on it.
Charlie, would you like a juice? I brought myself a juice tiger.
A juice tiger.
A juice tiger. I juice everything now. I'm on a new diet. I'm on my weekly World News Garth Brooks juice diet.
So Charlie's dad gives his little brother, William, or Heed, some grief because he's blocking the TV and he's got this big, like, orange afro head of hair, which makes his head look even bigger. It's so funny. Tony tries to shush him, but it doesn't work. And Tony's giggling this whole time.
The old man is going on about the size of the kid's head. And you can see Tony, while he thinks it's a little cruel, he's doing his best not to completely break up.
So back in the kitchen, May points out Sherry is running late and Charlie says, well, she's not coming. We broke up. And she's actually disappointed. She's like, I didn't like every girl that you dated, but I liked Sherry. So that's like, aw. And then she says she thought they might even get married. And Charlie says he's terrified of marriage. I would just argue he hadn't met the right woman, because once you do, it's not terrifying anymore. I think it's just terrifying at the prospect that you might marry the wrong person.
No idea what you're talking about.
Exactly, because you hit the jackpot. You hit the wife lottery. Just admit it.
Again, I can neither confirm nor deny.
You're such an ass. So May says he might be better off not getting married, actually, because if you read the paper, she's holding the Weekly World News, which is like a rag, like the Inquirer or something, right?
Right. It was a tabloid paper, started in 1979 and ran through 2007. And their most famous creation, or the most famous creature to grace the covers, was Bat Boy.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, they used him over and over. That or the space alien that met with Bill Clinton.
That totally rings a bell. So Charlie sees that that's the paper she's referring to. And he says, why do you refer to the Weekly World News as the paper? Like, that's interesting that you call it the paper. He's like, the paper contains facts. She immediately comes back with, well, this paper also contains facts. And she points out, pregnant man gives birth. That's a fact. And then points out Mrs. X, the honeymoon murderer. Points out the paper has the 8th highest circulation in the world. I guess that's supposed to make it respectable somehow.
1.2 million at its peak.
Wow. So she reads aloud to Charlie that Mrs. X marries men under a fake identity and then murders them on the honeymoon. So far, there's been 3. There was a lounge singer from Atlantic City, a Russian martial arts expert, and a plumber named Ralph Elliott. He looks it over, but he's like totally mocking her this whole time, being super sarcastic. And I'm like, oh, he's my spirit animal. So the night comes to a close and it's time for Tony and Charlie to leave. And May grabs Tony and lays the biggest kiss on his mouth, grabs the back of his head, and it goes on way too long.
She's very gropey with him.
And tells him he turned into a sexy bastard or something like that. So clearly they've known each other a long time. So we cut to the daytime, and there she goes, is playing again as Charlie's driving. He goes by the meat shop and he sees Harriet outside dressed in this little Dutch girl type costume, and she sees him too. It's a weird look on her face though, because it's like she's not sure if he's stalking her yet or if he's interested. But if you know how this movie all plays out and you pay attention to her face, it kind of gives some stuff away. So anyway, okay, so next we go to the police station where Tony does have a job. He's one of the employed people in this movie. He's looking real sad and sluggish as he's filling out forms. And the captain, and that's Alan Arkin, comes over and says, I don't want to intrude, but you seem a little down. He's like so concerned about Tony. It's so sweet. Tony says he's having doubts about being a cop.
And I can only think that Tony's probably pretty good at being a cop because he's on the detective squad and he doesn't appear to be that old. He can't be more than 30-ish.
Totally. But he says he's having doubts about being a cop because he thought it would be more exciting like it is on TV. But instead, he fills out forms and paperwork all day. And the captain says he understands it's not an exciting job, but it's a very important part of their work. Trying to reassure Tony. Tony complains, though. I've never chased a guy across a crowded square. I've never hung onto a helicopter. I've never even commandeered a vehicle. And he's so bothered by this.
This is a guy that grew up watching 70s detective shows on TV, and he was hoping to do all of that stuff.
So the captain says, wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. Tony tells the captain, you're too nice. And Tony asks him, why can't you be like the captain on Starsky and Hutch? So Tony is like telling, going a little further on this rant. And he's like, why can't you haul me in your office and bawl me out and tell me you're tired of defending me to the commissioner? And the captain interrupts and says, well, I don't report to a commissioner. I report to a committee. And Tony looks so sad when he says that. He says he feels more like Fish from Barney Miller.
Who doesn't love Abe Vigoda?
So Charlie now apparently has a lot of free time. Unclear what his job and financial situation is.
According to IMDb, he's a poet.
Okay, well, he's got free time during his days.
It lends to my theory that he's a poet who owns a coffee shop.
Well, that seems lucrative enough because it's always busy when we see it. But he shows up at the butcher shop now on the middle of a busy day to flirt with Harriet. The shop is packed. He just waltzes right up to the counter, and Harriet, of course, immediately recognizes him, calls him Haggis. So she seems to be a little into him, but she's swamped. So I'm just like, she stops what she's doing to talk to him. And everybody's like impatient and like looking at her like, hello. She asks Charlie, do you actually like haggis? And I love his response to her.
His response being that no, and that he feels most Scottish food is based on a dare.
He finds haggis repellent, and I thought, I can't even imagine what it smells like or tastes like. No, thank you.
For those of you that don't know, haggis would be a sheep's stomach, and then you take the offal from the sheep, the liver and organs, grind them up, mix them with some oats and spices, stuff them back in the stomach, and boil it, and then eat it.
I just threw up in my mouth a little. Thank you for that. So they get interrupted now, their little chat, by a curmudgeonly old guy who says he wants a steak cut 1/4 inch thick. No more, no less. He's very specific. They
Also,
even make fun of him.
That is a super thin steak.
Well, we cut to Harriet popping over to cut that steak for him. How thick does that steak look like she's cutting?
About 3 inches.
Exactly. I was like, did she not hear this guy? So she tells Charlie she's super busy. He says, well, he follows her kind of around to the back side there, which employees only, sir.
Yeah, creepy.
He says, well, my father owned a butcher shop, or my father was a butcher or whatever, so I can help you. I know what to do. And she's like, oh my God, yes, I would love some help. And I thought, can you just do that? Like, he needs a food handler's card. He's not on the payroll. But he jumps back there where she's cutting raw meat and goes to work, starts helping her. Then we get this.
And then, the meat montage that's coming up.
Yes, I was going to say, we immediately get a montage where the music kicks in. And this actually is one of my favorite scenes in the movie, even though a lot of it is super distressing to me as well. We get all kinds of quickly cut shenanigans between Charlie and the customers, as well as Charlie and Harriet. He makes weird sexual faces while using a meat slicer and some ooh, ah sounds and stuff. And it's like, oh, don't do that.
Yeah, and if you're an easily offended vegetarian or vegan, probably you can fast forward for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, and the customers that are in while this is happening, he engages with them and throws raw meat at them to catch. And the one lady goes, and panics and throws it at another lady. You're tossing raw meat around a shop. Wildly unprofessional.
And unsanitary.
Yes. But I also thought these customers in this whole scene, they make San Franciscans look like a bunch of impatient assholes with zero sense of humor. Because they do not find this amusing at all.
Actually, that kind of tracks for me.
The one thing that I thought was really funny was when he pretends there's an alien chest burster with a piece of raw meat coming out of his chest and he's making the noises and stuff.
That's my second favorite
What was
after
your favorite?
the severed hand.
Oh, he walks up to a customer acting like he cut his hand off.
Yes. Mom, call the school nurse.
Again, you're walking around this open shop where there's packaged grocery items for sale with this raw meat contaminating everything. The health department would have a heart attack if they knew they were doing this. And Harriet, of course, is amused by this, and she gets in on it, making funny noises and faces as she's stuffing raw sausage links. There's a scene, though, and this is the thing I want to point out that's so cute, where they're both holding these dead chickens, and they're side by side and holding the chickens in front of them, and they're making them dance to the music.
Chicken marionettes.
And they're just bobbing the heads and moving everything and having fun. she's still going and doing it. It's a real quick scene. And he stops for a second and looks up at her and is smiling. And it's so subtle, but it's so perfect. Like it encapsulates the whole montage is like in this one scene. Like he's so smitten with her. It's adorable. And the one thing I wanted to note too was in my research, and I had to look for it, she's got a Band-Aid on her finger in one of these shots in the montage, not all of them. Apparently they were really doing some stuff and horsing around, and she really did cut herself, but had a good time. She wasn't complaining.
Well, it was her second Band-Aid. The first one ended up on the bottom of that guy's steak.
So finally they close for the day, and Charlie and Harriet go grab a hot dog and walk in the park.
You spend all day in a butcher shop. You have all those nice cuts of meat. And then what do you eat when you're done? Hot dogs.
From the hot dog cart in the park, even.
Right.
So Harriet thanks Charlie for his help and tells him he's nice. And Charlie is bothered by being called nice. So Harriet says, fine, name one bad thing you've done. And Charlie says, oh, I've done bad things, but let's talk about you. And immediately puts it, turns it around right back on Harriet, asks her to tell him one bad thing she's done, and it better be evil. And she looks at him and she's like, how evil? And I have used this line ever since 1993 for my entire life. Whenever I have the opportunity to say the word evil, because he says, so evil that you would say it was evil, like the fruits of the devil, evil. It's so good.
Again, foreshadowing Austin Powers and Dr. Evil.
So then he says, okay, for example, how many people have you brutally murdered? To which Harriet responds, well, brutal's a very subjective word.
That's fair.
Not the response you want, though.
Well, I mean, if they really deserved it.
So later they pass by some Russian-speaking gentlemen in Navy uniforms. What are they wearing?
They're Russian sailors, yes.
Okay, never put that
San
together.
Francisco being a giant port city.
Harriet speaks back at them in Russian, and Charlie says the fact that she knows Russian is unfair because that makes her extremely good-looking and very smart. And I like that she immediately goes, oh, so bright women intimidate you? It's like, Charlie, you have a catch here. Calm down. So they have a few silly little moments, and she asked Charlie, what do you look for in a woman that you date? And this is where I was like, oh, knowing how the rest of the movie goes, why is she even opening this can of worms? Disengage.
I have been asked that question innumerable times. What do you look for in a woman? Yes, and the answer has usually been my penis.
I don't even know what to say to that. I'm going to just let that one go by. So he says to her, I know everyone always says sense of humor, but I'm going to go with breast size. So they end up back at Harriet's place, which I wanted to ask you this for geography of the film. It appears like it's an upstairs double side,
It's like a giant loft.
But do you think it's above that shop she owns? Because
I
you
don't
have to go
think
upstairs.
so. It looks a lot bigger than that shop would be.
Okay. Well, I just thought it was weird because you had to go upstairs to get to the first floor.
I would point out, though, that right now, the median home price in San Francisco is $1.4 million.
That's why I thought maybe she had a place right on top of the shop because she owns the shop.
And the average rent is $3,700 a month.
Well, this was 93 though. So.
Right. So, yeah.
Again, I'm thinking she lived on top of the shop. Maybe not. But anyway, okay. So they go up to her place. Harriet makes tea. And the choices that she gives Charlie for the tea, I have to just point this out. Cubby Wubby Womb Room tea or Morning Thunder. What do you think Cubby Wubby Womb Room tea tastes like or smells like? Because he doesn't even smell them or anything.
I think it's flavored mostly with jasmine and placenta.
What about Morning Thunder?
Morning Thunder is black tea and bull semen. Also, I'd point out herbal tea, not actually tea.
Oh, really?
Because tea is a specific plant, the tea plant. Herbal tea is usually a bunch of crap that does not have that plant in it.
So they just call it tea so that people will know what to do with it and how to drink it, much like milk alternatives.
Right. It's potpourri that you steep in hot water, essentially.
But that's what I'm saying. They use tea as a catch-all, much like milk alternatives call everything milk, because they want you to know what to do with it, basically. All right. So as she's making the tea, Charlie looks around and notices a giant poster of Atlantic City in her apartment there. Also, some martial arts clothing and weapons displayed on the wall. Harriet tells Charlie she used to live in Atlantic City, and the martial arts stuff is because she has a friend who was into it, and she took it up and then thought those looked cool and hung them on the wall. He jokes that Scotland has its own version of martial arts called fuck you. It's mostly headbutting and kicking people when they're on the ground. I always wonder how much of that is ad lib.
That sounds about right. Usually they just call it hooliganism.
Charlie is hesitant to kiss Harriet because he says he doesn't want to rush things. He readily then, though, agrees with Harriet, who says she wants to spend the night together. He's just like, okay, forget what I just said. Let's have sex. So they run upstairs, and then we cut to them after the fact, sleeping. Harriet is yelling the name Ralph in her sleep.
Also, I was very distracted by Nancy Travis's farmer's tan. You can see she's laying on her side, and if you look at her arm, it looks like she's been doing a lot of driving.
You're looking way too hard at Nancy Travis. I don't think I like this right now. But anyway, so she's yelling Ralph, and Charlie wakes her up and says, "You're saying Ralph in your sleep." And she's like, "Oh, I have a girlfriend named Ralph. She's my friend." And she rolls over and goes back to sleep. And Charlie's like, "What?" So the next morning, Charlie walks in on a strange woman in the shower because he thinks it's Harriet. He gets dressed and goes downstairs and finds that that woman is now dressed also and sitting on the couch. And it's really funny because his reaction, like just his physical performance with his head and his facial expressions, he's shocked that she's already dressed and down there. Like she beat him down there.
Right. How did she get past me?
Yeah, it's so funny. So he introduces himself, and the woman says her name is Rose, and she is Harriet's sister, and that she'd like to make him breakfast, offers for him to stay. What would you say to silver dollar pancakes, fresh squeezed OJ, bacon, and Kona coffee? And he's like, "Oh, that'd be great." And then we cut to him eating a bowl of Fruit Loops. And she's like, "Yeah, sorry, I was out of those other things."
Yeah, Rose, played by Amanda Plummer, a great actress. I'm sure she's a nice lady, but I have in my notes, Amanda Plummer, yuck. Just because I find her hard to look at.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, that was an interesting choice. Not that she's hard to look at, in my opinion, but that she doesn't resemble Nancy Travis at all. They don't look like they'd be related to me. So I thought that was an odd choice. I mean, at least try. So Rose is sitting across from Charlie, and she's sketching in a pad and tells Charlie that this apartment is hers and Harriet's both. They both own it or rent it or whatever. And Harriet comes and goes. She's not always there, but she always ends up back there. And if this is a rewatch, you're like, oh, okay. Rose likes the Harriet's always coming back. And if you pay attention, again, being a great actress, Amanda Plummer, Rose is clearly off. And I use that word in quotes. The way she talks, the way she carries herself, she's just weird. You can tell something's not right with Rose. She says that she's going to go and tells Charlie to be careful. And it's like, huh? Okay.
Because she knows he's driving that crappy car around those hilly streets.
Now we cut to my favorite part in this motion picture. The song Two Princes by Spin Doctors is playing, which I just love this soundtrack. We see a shot of Charlie and Tony at the front of a police boat zipping across the water to Alcatraz. My question to you, sir, is why? If they're going to go do the tour, why are they taking a police boat and getting special treatment and waste of resources to have their asses taken to the island? Why?
Perhaps the boat was already going there, and being in the police force, Tony knew that it was going to go there, so they just hitched a ride. Or he's so disappointed that he's never been able to commandeer a car that he commandeered a police boat.
Does it count if it's kind of already yours, though? Well, so anyway, so they're going to Alcatraz. And then my other question was, I've lived in a lot of places where there are tourist attractions And usually out of curiosity, you go once because you want to see whatever the big deal is. You go to Disneyland. If you live in California, you go once. You're not, you know what I'm saying? Like a tourist place. Alcatraz is a tourist place and they're going to be part of a tour. This seems to me, the way that they act in the scene, like they do this whenever they're bored. They go all the time to this Alcatraz tour. I thought that was weird.
If there was a local attraction where I live, and I knew I could go and Phil Hartman was going to take me around and tell me about stuff, I would go every week.
All right, fair. So they join a tour group at Alcatraz in process, and they start to have a conversation as they're walking that Charlie really likes Harriet. And we get another phrase that I've used ever since. He says he's smitten. He's in deep smit. And that's so cute. I love it. So Charlie then says he doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Tony, stop asking me because I'll just wind up over analyzing it. And Tony quickly agrees, which I was like, yes, Tony is the MVP. He's such a good friend to Charlie. So this is where the group gets addressed by a park ranger who introduces himself. And this is Phil Hartman, RIP. Just talked about him not long ago on Jingle All the Way. He was so good, like delivering the comedy without even cracking.
Also, not the only time he's played a tour guide.
Oh, really?
As he's the tour guide for the Hoover Dam in Vacation. You can take all the dam pictures you want.
That's funny. I don't remember that. So he says he'll be leading them on a tour, and all the rangers here at one time were guards at Alcatraz, including himself. He says his name is John Johnson, but everyone here calls him Vicky. And I like as they're going off on the tour, you see Tony lean into Charlie. He's like, I love Vicky. And Charlie's like, yeah, he's great. So, you know, they clearly come do this quite a bit. I will go ahead and track down the soundbite of his little story because it's hysterical and I have to put it in here for everybody because I can't do it justice. But as they're going on the tour, Vicky's telling them of all these famous people that stayed there. And despite saying that he doesn't want to talk about it, Charlie is still talking Tony's ear off about Harriet as they're continuing this tour, mentions that she said Ralph in her sleep. And Tony was like, Ralph, that's weird. Okay, so now this is where the soundbite that I'll play. Vicky stops the tour and tells everyone to gather in close. And it's all serious. And you're like, oh, what's he going to say?
Here's something the other guards won't tell you.
And then he tells them this crazy story, which, like I said, I won't even try to do it justice. I'll just play the clip.
It's a nice story about one of the residents of Alcatraz, Machine Gun Kelly, not the rapper.
Now, this is something the other tour guides won't tell you. In this particular cell block, Machine Gun Kelly had what we call in the prison system a bitch. And one night, in a jealous rage, Kelly took a makeshift knife, or shiv, and cut out the bitch's eyes. And as if this wasn't enough retribution for Kelly, the next day, he and 4 other inmates took turns pissing into the bitch's ocular cavities. This way to the cafeteria.
In the middle, which this is a podcast, so you can't see their face, but in the middle of the soundbite, Charlie and Tony start talking again and they interrupt Vicky's story. And he just gives them this death stare. And then he like rolls his eyes like, anyway, and then continues his story. And it's so fucking funny. You have to see it. So after this big speech, Charlie asks Tony, please don't let me screw this up with Harriet. And Tony's like, okay. And I'm just, again, oh my God, I love their friendship. So we cut to another music montage with There She Goes. And luckily, I love this song. I don't mind that it keeps playing over and over.
They don't play so much of it that you get sick of it.
Yeah, just a little bit. We see montage here with Harriet and Charlie and a little bit including Rose of them just doing cute various daily activities. And it ends after a few scenarios of them fading into a diner where Charlie and Harriet are on a double date with Tony and a woman. We don't know her name, but in the credits, she's called Susan. And this is the amazing Debbie Mazar. She is the actress with beautiful black locks and the gorgeous pale blue eyes who was with Anthony LaPaglia in Empire Records as well. And this was around the same time period. So I had to wonder if they were a couple in real life for a while.
I remember her mostly as the publicist on Entourage.
Yes. So they're in the middle, as we join them, in the middle of a game called Which is Worse? Tony asks, which is worse, to the group at the table. He says, the cable goes out and all you're left with is synchronized swimming on ESPN, or, and he throws it, to the group. Charlie chimes in and says, or you're stuck on the Bay Bridge in traffic after you've had 2 really strong cups of coffee and 3 bran muffins. So out of those 2, which is worse?
The second by far, because I can always turn the TV off.
Everyone laughs, and then Harriet says, okay, I have one. She says, what's worse? You go to your favorite restaurant, order your favorite meal, you take your first bite of a steak, and underneath is a scabby Band-Aid.
Yes, the one you left on that guy's steak from earlier.
And she says, or, and throws it out at the table. And then, of course, all eyes go to Tony's date. She thinks for a second, and she's really thinking. And then she goes, or being electrocuted. And they're all like,
yeah,
okay.
Not quite what we were going for.
Yeah, the group is not impressed by this. And she's like, what? I've been electrocuted. It's not good, or whatever she said. So the check now comes, and Charlie and Tony debate loudly over who's going to pay the check. And Harriet just grabs it and says, I'll take it. I'll pay it. And I thought, well, Tony's a cop. He maybe doesn't make that much. And we don't know what the fuck Charlie does. So
Professional poet and possibly coffee shop owner.
So outside it's raining, and Harriet decides she wants to walk home. So she and Charlie take off. Then on the walk, Charlie says, I'm really glad you're going to meet my parents tomorrow night. So she's apparently at that stage now where she's meeting everybody important in Charlie's life. And I thought, why hasn't she pulled the plug on this yet? Like, this is getting serious. She should know better because of her track record. So we cut to the next night at Charlie's parents' house. They arrive, and Charlie mentions, in 2 weeks, I'm throwing a 30-year wedding anniversary party for my folks, and I would love it if you would go. Then they go inside. They're greeted by May and Stuart without his pants.
Okay, the 30th wedding anniversary thing always made me think, how old are his parents supposed to be? Because they're retired. Charlie's 30? Was he a bastard?
Well, they also have the younger son that's only like 15.
Well, you have to do something in your retirement.
Oh my God. Yeah, I wondered all about the ages of everybody in this, to be honest. But I also find the older I get, the harder it is for me to gauge people's ages that don't have gray hair. Like, I don't know how old you all are. So Stuart sneaks up on Harriet, and she puts a little self-defense move on him, twisting his arm. And Charlie's dad says she's quite the filly.
The move she puts on him is something she might have learned from a martial arts expert, maybe?
You might say that. So May wants to get out the photo albums and start showing Harriet pictures of young Charlie. He protests, and she says, oh, lighten up, Charlie. You got to pickle up your ass again. And then he excuses himself to the bathroom. He tells Harriet, I have to go to the bathroom. I think I have a pickle up my ass. I just love the relationship with him and his parents. It's so good. So when he's in the bathroom here, Charlie sees the Mrs. X paper sitting there by the toilet. He opens it up.
Okay, can we talk about this bathroom for a second?
It looks like my Nana's bathroom.
It's as filthy as a gas station restroom. It's look at the sink is horrible. The doors are. It looks like a bunch of mechanics work there, and they never wipe their hands on anything except maybe the walls.
And there's shit everywhere, papers and all kinds of stuff.
Not actual shit, but yeah, there's clutter.
Clutter.
Lots of it. Is it the only bathroom in the house?
Oh my God, I hope not. No, it's a 2-story. When you see it from the outside, there's at least 2 levels.
Yeah, it's like a big townhome. So probably worth 2 million right now, at least.
Jeez. So Charlie sees the Mrs. X thing and he gets a little nervous and he opens the door a crack to peek out at Harriet and hears her telling his mom that she's moved around a lot and now she's in San Francisco. And he gets nervous about everything with this Mrs. X stuff now. So on the drive home, he's being a little weird with Harriet and he asks her where she was friends with this martial arts expert, what city. She says Miami, which is what it said in the paper with Mrs. X. He asks if that was before or after Atlantic City. And she just gets this look on her face like, why are you asking me this? So she says, I don't like to talk about that period of my life. He's being super weird. Don't tip her off, man. If she is a killer, don't tip her off.
You just do what I do. If you think you're going to get involved with this woman, you have your friend who works for the police quietly run a background check on her.
Exactly. Wait, what?
I'm sorry. I said the quiet part out loud.
So later in bed, Harriet says Ralph again in her sleep. And then the next day, Charlie shows the Mrs. X story to Tony, saying he thinks Harriet is Mrs. X. Tony makes this face that just says it all. He does not believe Charlie whatsoever, right? He goes, 2 words, therapy. Yes, Tony, yes. Charlie keeps pushing Tony. Tony keeps pushing Charlie, saying, you're just getting scared. Harriet could be the one, so you're trying to find reasons to break up with her. Charlie begs Tony to please read the story. So Tony reads a little part out loud that we didn't know yet, the audience. Apparently, the lounge singer in Atlantic City was famous for singing the song Only You in 6 different languages. And Tony's like, does she even know the words to Only You? And Charlie's like, I don't know.
The first time I heard that, I thought they would sing the entire song in 6 different languages, which apparently wasn't the case. It's the one song, and then they switch languages in the middle
during the song. Yeah.
Right.
Tony and Charlie joke about this for a minute, but then Tony says, look, Charlie, you need to move past this. I'm getting worried about you. And Charlie, because he goes, Charlie, you're living your life according to the Weekly World News. And Charlie immediately comes back with the same thing as Mother said. I'll have you know it's the 8th highest circulated paper in the world. Like that just somehow validates everything in it.
Just because a lot of people like something doesn't mean it's good.
I'm looking at you, The Bachelor. So Charlie asks Tony, please look into Mrs. X. And Tony says, fine. And he looks at the missing persons reports for the lounge singer, finds no record of his death. And I thought this was interesting because there's a records clerk here in this scene, and it's played by actress and comedian Lunell. She tells Charlie and Tony there's no photos of these wives, and all 3 men have been reported missing. They're not dead. And I thought to myself, what? The Weekly World News exaggerated a story? How dare they? These men aren't dead. They're just missing.
Right. And when you're watching it, a lot of you will recognize Lunell as the hooker who becomes Mrs. Borat at the end of Borat.
That's right. So later at Harriet's, Charlie sees a story on the TV about a rise in national poisoning murders in the United States.
Not just on TV, but on A Current Affair.
Harriet comes in with a drink for Charlie that she made for him special. Apparently she worked on it for 20 minutes or half an hour, which is weird, but okay. She says it's a health shake. It's an orangey red color with ice and a little bit of a foam at the top, almost like an Italian soda, it looked like to me. And it's,
right. She says shake, but it doesn't appear to have any kind of viscosity there.
No, it's very loose. She pressures Charlie to drink it, and he's freaking out, and he's backing away from her and like, no, I'm good. No, thanks. He backs himself into, and again, geography of her room here, a little help, a closet with a see-through, like a glass door panel you can see in the closet, but next to it is another closet on one side you can see, and then the door to the room. So I'm like, was this a purposely for this gag built? Because why would there be the 2 closets side by side like that? It was so weird.
A lot of the doors in the loft or whatever you want to call it are clear, including the one on the bathroom.
Yeah, I thought that was so weird. I don't know if this is a real place or a set, and all the doors are different too. But anyway, okay, so he backs himself into this closet that you can see through, shuts the door, and because he's scared to death, and Harriet's like, fine, whatever, and she leaves. When she slams the door, it's the full Uncle Buck moment. Everything in the closet falls from above onto Charlie and completely buries him in this closet. But that's not the funny part to me. The funny part to me is when he tries to open the door and he falls out and he's in the middle of all this and his little feet are dangling. It's so funny. And there's so much shit. I paused it and was looking at the stuff in her closet. I'm like, why does she have all this random stuff? It's so weird.
Some people can just never get rid of stuff, and then your house becomes overly crowded and your attic's full of crap and you don't have room in the garage, and you just got to put stuff somewhere.
Good point. So later in bed, Harriet apologizes to Charlie. They do some back scratching and they're laughing and playing. It's so cute. Harriet says her favorite thing about Charlie is that she can tell him anything and he doesn't judge her. Next, she points out to Charlie, we tend to trust other people with our lives just as human beings in the world all the time. Because she points out, have you ever stood like on a subway platform and thought you could just push the person next to you right off the platform? And Charlie's like, no, I've never wanted to do that.
There's a lot of foreshadowing in this movie to present day, what with pregnant men and people being pushed off a subway platform.
She points out that when they sleep, they are the most vulnerable and she could do anything to him in his sleep. And he foolishly asks, what could you do? No, don't ask that. So of course she says, well, I could stick a needle in your ear. And she starts putting her finger in his ear and he freaks out. She starts screaming too. And she's like, oh my God, I was just trying to tell you what kind of a good relationship we have. And his excuse for why that freaked him out. So dumb. And I don't even remember this show. I was too young. He says he has an ear thing ever since he saw an episode of Night Gallery with earwigs.
Yes, it's the classic story where it crawls in and the doctor gets it out and goes, but the bad news is it laid eggs.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he does kind of overreact a bit.
So the next day, Charlie goes to the local newspaper office to take out an announcement for his parents' anniversary. And the lady at the counter starts talking to him and says, okay, no problem. That'll be $4.50 per word. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, you would get like a 6-word sentence out of me if that's how much it costs to put an announcement. No, thank you. So as Charlie's talking to this lady at the desk, 2 men behind him are joking about the obituaries. And these 2 gentlemen are Michael Richards as an insensitive reporter and Mike Haggerty as the obituary writer. They are so funny in this scene.
Well, these are 2 seasoned improv guys. Obviously, Michael Richards, Kramer from Seinfeld, and Mike Haggerty. If you're watching reruns of Friends, you'll catch him as the building superintendent.
So Charlie eavesdrops as they drop Ralph Elliott's name. And the way that this scene goes to me is so damn clever because they're talking and the lady at the desk is like, how dare you joke about that? That's somebody's family member. Because, you know, the obituary people. She's like, that's terrible. And they're like, yeah, sorry. But then when Charlie hears Ralph Elliott, he wants more info. He doesn't care about them being insensitive. He wants info. So he turns around and he says, did they mention the wife? This goes back about 3 or 4 times between him and Michael Richards. Michael Richards is like, yeah, I get it. I'm insensitive.
Charlie legitimately wants information about the wife, and Michael Richards feels he's being badgered to made to be feel like a bad person.
And he completely loses his shit and starts yelling and storms off. And then he turns and he goes, no, they didn't mention the wife. And then he storms out. It's so funny. You see hints of Kramer with the physicality there.
As you do in UHF, if you want to tie that back into Turkeyverse.
That's right. He was in UHF. He's Stanley Spadowski. Very good. So we cut now to Harriet and Charlie on the grassy area outside these homes in San Francisco. And it is the same shot that they use for Full House. So they're walking, and Charlie breaks up with Harriet, telling her it's a preemptive strike because he's afraid she's going to reject him. So he's just rejecting her first, even after she asks him to be honest. Tell me the truth. No, he just totally lies. We know it's because he thinks she's Mrs. X. Now, if you're on a rewatch, this line will mean something to you. It did not mean anything to me until I finally paid attention and figured it out. Harriet, before she walks away, says, well, at least you left early on. And the first couple times I saw this movie, I'm like, early what?
Because she has abandonment issues because her husband's kept disappearing.
So she's like, at least you left early on. Oh, didn't wait till the honeymoon. Got it. Later, we see Charlie writing in his little poetry book by a lake or something. Then we cut to Rhodes' bar, where he's going to perform. He says Harriet might be Mrs. X, and he had to run for his life. No, you didn't. Shows her photo on the screen. You better hope that nobody that knows her comes here to Rhodes and sees this and tells her, like, hello. So he finishes with that Jane, get me off this crazy thing called love. And he picks up the candle, but this time he doesn't blow it out. He sets it down and leaves it burning. It's like, oh, he's leaving the like metaphorical door open. Took me a while to figure that out too.
Maybe he was just out of breath from that poem.
So later, it's midday, and we cut to Charlie at his apartment. And this is where in my notes I wrote, what does he do? How can he afford to live here? Because it's unclear. Charlie gets a phone call from Tony, who tells Charlie somebody turned themselves in and confessed to the murder of Ralph Elliott. Charlie gets all excited, hops in his car, and rushes over to Harriet's place to beg her to take his stupid ass back.
So someone confesses to one of 3 murders?
But at this point, we only know Ralph has been murdered. Harriet now says, no, I'm not going to just take you back. You'll do it to me again. And he's begging. He says, I just got really scared. Things were going so good. Still doesn't tell her the truth about thinking she's Mrs. X. Tells her he loves her. And she says she loves him too. But he blew it and shuts the door in his face. I was so happy because this whole time I was like, she knows her track record and should not have gotten involved with Charlie in the first place, honestly. So later that night, Charlie and his 3-piece band from Rhodes show up outside Harriet's to serenade her. I wanted to ask you, this looks like he's on a rooftop and she's standing in what looks like her kitchen window with the window open, and he can walk right up to it.
Right.
What a weird layout this is.
Well, I think that her townhome is just higher than the adjoining building. So he's in an adjoining building. So essentially her window there looks out onto the roof of the other building.
Okay, because he can walk right up to it. And I was like, that's weird. But maybe they're, literally sharing a wall or something. And this was funny too. Harriet is leaning, looking out the window at him, right, as he's doing his poem. Behind her, you can see a sink and some dishes. So this is supposed to be her kitchen. There is shelving behind her on the wall. And there are at minimum 5 vintage metal lunch boxes, lunch pails.
And what's wrong with having vintage collectibles?
I just thought that was very odd. So whoever's place this is that they were using clearly collects vintage lunch pails.
Oh, I wouldn't keep him in the kitchen though, because I wouldn't want him near water.
Right? But Charlie goes into his serenading, and this poem that he does is on the soundtrack, and I've listened to it hundreds of times.
This is like the beatnik version of John Cusack and Say Anything.
Totally. At the end, though, it's cute because Harriet waves him over and they have a cute little moment. So she's clearly going to take him back. If the guy serenades you, yes, it's poetry, but still, that's a pretty grand gesture.
Yeah, never a big fan of the grand gesture.
I'm aware.
I mean, because you only have to do that if you really screwed something up. So how would I even know?
Fair point. Just put it in your pocket for, later. Grand gesture. So now we cut to This is one of my favorite scenes, but it's confusing. We cut to Charlie and Harriet in a giant bathtub surrounded by tile and a big tile step all the way around. Again, this confuses me with the geography inside of her building, her house. Where was this tub in the other scenes with the shower and her room? And like, where is this?
No idea. Maybe on another floor?
In somebody else's house, really?
Or were they in the house? Maybe they went somewhere.
Yeah, it's in the house because downstairs is Harriet's downstairs.
Oh, right. And the phone rings.
Yeah. So the bathtub phone. So they're in this tub and they're being so cute, you know, with the bubbles and whatnot. And Rose comes knocking on the door and says Harriet has a visitor downstairs. I love that Charlie grabs this shower sprayer nozzle and he pretends it's a telephone and he speaks into it with an accent, like a stuffy British accent.
What? Like an Austin Powers kind of accent? Like he's talking to Basil Exposition?
It's perfection. She'll be down in a moment. And could you bring the car around? Yes, thank you very much. And he says it in this great accent that I can't do. So then Harriet is down there in her robe. Here comes Charlie down the stairs, only wearing a towel around his waist. Why? When you know there's a visitor. And this was unintentional. It was an accident. But when he gets to the bottom of the stairs and he's getting ready to do, he throws his arms up and one of his legs, and he's going to do a funny little walk, a little saunter over to where they are. The towel on his waist shifts and you can see a white band of underwear under the towel. Yes, I look for these things, folks. Yes, I do.
How do you know he wasn't wearing those in the bathtub?
He could have been, but it doesn't. The reason it's a problem is because he goes over to Harriet, who says, I'd like you to meet my friend Ralph. And here's this woman.
Played by Linda Hamilton.
No, but she looks a lot like her.
This woman looks remarkably like Linda Hamilton.
It's crazy. But I looked her up and she looks to me like another actress. Oh, she looks like Linda Hamilton. And this isn't her. So there are two of these women floating around Hollywood that look like Linda Hamilton.
I believe they are either clones or time-displaced versions of Linda Hamilton.
They're from the multiverse. So he meets Ralph and hugs her because he's so excited that this is Ralph, and his towel falls off. And
his sopping wet underwear that he was wearing.
No, he's not. He's just supposed to have a towel. He's naked. He's so naked. And the reason this is funny too to me is because he's hugging her and the look on his face, he's shocked, and you see a shot of his ass and Ralph's hand goes down and she pats him on his naked butt cheek. Right on the ass. It's so cute and funny because she's all trying to be nice and he's embarrassed and he's going to sneak away and he's all, call me. And she's like, okay. It's so awkward. And that's the moments I find myself in this movie laughing the most, are the cute little subtle things that just tickle my funny bone.
Also, you like male nudity in movies, so.
I'm partial. I'm not going to lie. So we cut now to Cock of the North restaurant and bar pub situation where the Mackenzies' 30th wedding anniversary party is in progress. Charlie's dad makes a funny but extremely sweet toast to his wife. And then as everyone heads to the dance floor, Charlie grabs Harriet and asks her to marry him. She looks genuinely shocked. Not in a good way. She's very like, whoa. She says no abruptly. No. He thinks she's joking. And so he goes, please?
If she says no the first time you ask, just try again in like 2 weeks.
Is that how that works? Is that the rule?
Well, I wouldn't know.
This is true. So she asks, why can't we just live together? And it's a tell. If you know the movie and you're paying attention, it's a tell. I don't want to, let's not get married. That's just because that's when things go south typically. But it's also confusing because if you know how this movie plays out, and you do, so tell me what you think. Living together, also a problem because Rose has a huge problem with men in Harriet's life. She likes Harriet to come back to her. Living together, I think, would present an equally big problem. Would you not think that?
I don't know. Is Rose going to live with you?
Well, Rose lives there with them, yeah. Or with her Harriet.
Yeah, I don't know that there would be that much of a problem.
Oh, that's true. You don't think she'd kick Rose out?
No, but I think Rose would probably still make him disappear.
This is what I'm saying to you. Harriet doesn't think this is a problem. Moving on. Charlie says he loves her and wants to spend at least the next 30 years together and have children. Harriet is smiling, so you can see that she's touched and loves him and wants to. He puts this cute button on it, though, by saying another I love you. Harriet, be my wife. It's so sweet. But then he gets interrupted by his dad, who gives a big loud thank you toast to Charlie. And as everyone's clapping, and Harriet just leans in and says yes. You can tell she's a little reluctant, but she does it. She says yes, and they kiss. So cute.
Now, do you suspect that, or do they really intimate that? Does Harriet know that Rose is the murderer?
At this point, we don't know what Harriet really knows, except that she's been burned.
Because they kind of play the movie like she doesn't know until the actual reveal towards the end.
She doesn't know what happened to them. She just thought they all ran off.
But I think it's also possible that she at least suspects and is just protecting her wacky sister.
I thought that too. But when Rose is exposed at the end, she is shocked. She had no idea. I'm telling you, we'll get there. I'm telling you. When I go a long time between watches of this movie, I genuinely forget how much Harriet knows or doesn't know.
Yeah, because if she does know, she should go to jail.
She doesn't have any idea at this point. She just thinks they run off. All right, so fade into the wedding where Charlie says, I do. And even though she hesitates for a minute, Harriet does say, I do, and they get hitched.
And when you say a minute, it's like a good 30 seconds to a minute before she says, I do. And everyone's kind of getting uncomfortable and staring at each other.
Yeah. Oh, his parents are like holding their breath.
And I would point out it's a great Scottish wedding.
Yes.
Where the best man and the maid of honor, I guess, her sister, both in full Scottish outfits with the kilts.
Yep. The whole shebang. So is Charlie.
Right. I went to one of those.
Really? Did you wear a kilt?
I did not wear a kilt. My friend Ted, though, got married and he was wearing a kilt.
Oh, really? What, the rest of the wedding party too?
Yes.
So was there a bagpipe player at the reception?
I don't recall, but it was Scottish themed wedding at the Chinese Gardens.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Was that around this time? Was that in the 90s? When was this?
That was probably closer to 2000s,
early
2000s.
Okay. When was Sean Connery James Bond? Was that the 70s?
He was Bond in the 60s.
60s.
Yeah, and Roger Moore took over for most of the 70s.
Okay. Just trying to put a little timeline here together of Scottish stuff. Okay. So we cut to the reception outside. Charlie's dad is singing along to Do You Think I'm Sexy by Rod Stewart with
a Scotsman.
A bagpipe player is playing, and he looks older, has a white beard. So the two of these guys are up there rocking out. We see May in the background aggressively groping Tony as they're dancing. She's got her hands up his ass. It's so gross. Poor Tony, just taking one for the team constantly.
I would point out my mother-in-law does that all the time. I've just never mentioned it until now.
I'm so glad she doesn't listen to the show. She would be mortified at that accusation. How dare you, sir? So a very skinny white guy, bald, black gloves, in a gray suit that looks about 3 sizes too big for him, is dancing wildly at the reception. Did you notice this guy?
Yeah, it's like he's wearing David Byrne's suit.
He looks like a skinny Dr. Evil.
I didn't really think of that.
He looks like Dr. Evil's anorexic little brother. So I have a little clip of the Piper Down here, which I'll try to insert. The bagpipe guy collapses because he's drunk or pissed, as Charlie's dad would say, right? And he says something like, we have a Piper down. A Piper is down.
Right, like he's announcing it over the PA.
And what's so funny to me, though, in this scene is as the old guy's falling down, the bagpipe is playing and it just starts to go, ooh, and like the sounds slowly dissipate and like make a weird sound as he's collapsing. I don't know why that's so funny to me.
And your hands, all you've got to All right, we have a piper who's down. It's all right, he's just missed. We have a piper down. I repeat, a piper is down.
So then we cut to Tony and Charlie over standing at the bar laughing. And this is when Tony says, "What a great party. The marriage was beautiful. Harriet's incredible." And you see Charlie is just smiling ear to ear. And he's like, "I'm so happy you finally found the one." And I'm like, oh, Tony is such a good friend. I love Tony. He asked Charlie, "How could you ever have thought that she was a murderer?"
You wouldn't think she was a murderer. You'd think she was a murderess.
Pretty sure that's not what they meant. Just then, Harriet starts to sing "Only You" alongside a violinist. She calls a reluctant Charlie to come over and stand with her while she's singing. She starts singing a verse in French, I believe. Charlie's standing there. He's like fake smiling, like he's scared to death because she's singing "Only You" in another language. And again, in a rewatch, we get a quick shot of Rose watching all of this. She's tearing up and looking like she's genuinely happy for them.
Or she's sad because she has to kill this guy.
That was going to be my question, is what do you think her mental state is at this point?
I think Rose is a little all over the map.
Agreed. So now we fade into Harriet and Charlie driving to their honeymoon. The place is called Poets Corner. That tracks because of Charlie.
Okay, for the record, looked it up. Not a real place, but it was filmed at a place called the Dunsmuir Estate, which is in Oakland, as opposed to being north of San Francisco, where they kind of show them driving.
Yeah, they show them going like up coast. That's really cool that that's a real place. So it's way out of the way, 40 miles in up who knows where here. As they're driving, though, still, Charlie's joking around saying that Harriet's being really quiet. And we know on a rewatch, it's because she's nervous. Here comes the honeymoon. Is he going to bounce? What's going to happen here? So she's nervous. She's being quiet. He jokes that he's going to make her mouth move and do the talking for her, which is really funny and cute, I think, when guys do that.
I can't say I've never done that.
I'm aware. We dated before we were married. I remember. So he jokes and makes her say, "Oh, Charlie, you're the best husband I ever had." And he's just goofing around. She immediately stops him and she's like, "Why would you say that? What made you say that?" And he's like, "I don't know. I was just joking." But the thing that's irritating to me the most is that they're on this windy, sketchy, and
they're doing the movie trope where they keep turning to look at each other to have a conversation and not watching the road at all.
Exactly. And then you realize how dangerous that is when she gets all excited and hugs him and he swerves and goes right to the edge of the cliff. We cut now to Tony's captain storming into his office, kicking his feet off his desk and saying, "I hear from the boys upstairs you've been sticking your nose in the Ralph Elliott case." And the look on Tony's face, he looked like he just orgasmed. So the captain continues, "Stay out of the case. It's strictly homicide." So Tony's like, "But I have a friend." And the captain cuts him off and he goes, "We all got friends." He's like really laying it on thick. He goes, "I'm warning you, Italian boy, back off. Stay away from this one. It's too big." So as he's leaving, Tony jumps up and says, "Captain, you have to trust me on this. What's the news?" The captain backs Tony against the wall aggressively and says, "The news is that a woman confessed to killing Ralph. She also confessed to killing Abraham Lincoln, Warren G. Harding, and Julius Caesar." Oh my God, it's so funny. And seriously, like, this is Tony's wet dream. He's like, "I gotta go." And the captain grabs him by the shirt and is super aggressive with him. "Don't screw this up or you'll be writing parking tickets forever."
Also, in my headcanon, I think the woman that confessed maybe did kill all three of those people because she's a time-displaced Linda Hamilton.
On a mission from the future, like a Terminator. So Tony says, "I won't let you down, Captain." And he goes to leave. And it's funny because Captain stands there for a second with his finger like on his lip and he's pursed brow and he's like deep in thought. You can tell he's like going over how he was just acting. Tony runs off. "I have to go save a life." And the captain yells, "It wasn't too much?" And Tony yells, "That was so much better. So you could just tell like he's trying so hard for Tony and Tony really appreciates it. It's so funny.
He did his homework though, because he sounded like every 1970s police drama supervisor.
Yes. So we see Harriet and Charlie now arriving at Poet's Corner, but then we immediately cut to a montage of a man, we find out it's Tony, faxing a photograph of Harriet from the wedding to different people. We see somebody on the phone confirm, yep, that's Ralph Elliott's wife, all right. Of course, her hair was much shorter back then. This is her wedding photo. Her hair was all pinned up at her wedding. How does he even know what length her hair is? Like, well, somebody
maybe she had a crew cut. She had the Annie Lennox look because it was the early 80s.
Well, I was like, somebody wrote the script before they picked what photo to use because that did not track at all.
Well, okay, I see you're going to the next guy that he talks to who says, oh, she's gained a lot of weight since then, but that's her. This is Nancy Travis. How much weight could she have gained? She weighs 108 pounds now?
Soaking wet. Yeah.
So what she weighed like 80 then?
Yeah, it cracked me up. The Asian guy, and he's in a karate studio or something, and he's holding her photo, and he's like, yep, she's gained a lot of weight, but that's definitely her. So I guess this is supposed to be corroborating for the martial arts expert. It's so stupid. Yeah. How much weight has she gained? Really? She's so fucking skinny. And then they cut to the third one and he looks like a mobster or a mob boss or something to me. And he's got some lady standing there with him. And he's confirming Harriet was in fact, yes, that's her. She was the lounge singer's former wife. This guy looks like he could be Tony's dad, LaPaglia's dad to me. I was like, oh my God.
He's running a casino in Atlantic City.
Yeah, in the credits, I can't remember what they call him specifically, but it was something like man with floozy because it's him and this lady standing there. And I was like, what?
That seems accurate.
So then we cut to Tony and we see him hanging up the phone looking scared and he runs off. So he's obviously been the one confirming all of this. Harriet and Charlie now check in at the front desk of Poet's Corner. And the desk clerk checking them in here is none other, the concierge, Greg German, whom I fell in love with years later on Ally McBeal. He's very good at comedy, in my opinion. Loved seeing him in here, for sure. So Harriet asks him, is there a drugstore in the hotel? I need an aspirin because I have a headache. And he's all right up the stairs back there. Help yourself, anything you need.
What every guy wants to hear from his wife on the wedding night.
But I was like, that's weird. They're in this lobby of this big giant like mansion looking house. And he's like, oh yeah, we have a hotel drugstore right up the stairs there. Like, what? There's a drugstore in the hotel?
Well, like there is in every great hotel you go to.
I mean, maybe a gift shop and they happen to have, toiletries and aspirin. Sure. But do you have a drugstore in the hotel? Can I get my blue meth back there too?
If the hotel's in Albuquerque.
So now he's checking them in. He says, your dinner reservation is at 9. And I was like, that's weird. Who eats dinner
late
at 9
for dinner?
Yeah, who eats at 9 o'clock? A full room of people, by the way, eating at 9 o'clock. He says there's candles by the bed just in case the storm comes through and you lose power. So we've been teed up for that. He hands him the room key and says, the Robbie Burns room, as you requested, sir.
Robert Burns is a Scottish poet.
See, I didn't know that. I had to look that up. Scottish poet and lyricist, widely regarded as the national poet of Scotland from 1759 to 1796 is when he lived.
Like you said, really leans into the Scottish thing.
Huge. I was cracking up because that just gives it another layer. So back at the police station, the records clerk goes running in a panic. This is the most excitement they've had in years. Goes running into Tony. Circuits are down due to the storm. Circuits are down. You can't get through. Tony runs off and says, tell the chief I've chartered a plane. Just as he's leaving, the captain comes out and says, hey, paisan. Oh my God, it's so funny. He says, you screw up one more time and I'll kick your spaghetti bending butt back to Milan. Tony says, not now. And he runs off. And the captain's like, was it too much with the ethnic slurs? I got such a kick out of this bit. I can't tell you. Every time it's so funny. Oh, and that he said it wrong, by the way. He said paisan.
Paisan, right.
Because when Tony's running off, he goes, it's not paisan, it's paisan. Were you not amused by Alan Arkin in this at all?
Alan Arkin is always funny.
What else has he been in that he was funny?
Well, he was Clouseau at one time.
Really?
Yes. A movie called Freebie and the Bean, which is underrated and a lot of people don't know about. I think it's The World's Greatest Lover he's in. It was really good.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard of any of this.
And The In-Laws with Peter Falk. Great movie.
They did a remake of that, correct?
They did. Not successfully, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, are they usually ever? So back at Poet's Corner, we see the storm has now rolled in. Harriet takes a necklace with 3 wedding rings on it out of her powder in the bathroom, her little makeup powder dish.
Is that a place women hide stuff in their face
face
powder, or I'm assuming face powder?
I'm going to say probably, or at least it's tropey enough, like they do it in movies and TV. But I have never done that, no. Because you got to wipe it all off and clean it off every time you want to take it out. That would that would annoy me. No, that's not a good hiding place. And you use the powder. So that's inefficient. No. So she pulls those out and she looks at herself sternly in the mirror and with thunders crashing outside. And for a minute, you're like, ooh, maybe she's Mrs. X. Like this could go bad for Charlie right now if you don't know what's going to happen.
Maybe she's looking to add a 4th ring.
Exactly. So we cut to a small plane flying in the storm. Inside are Tony and the pilot. And this is comedian Stephen Wright. If you are not familiar with him, he is still alive. He's 67 and still working, but he's mostly known for his deadpan delivery and one-liners. I looked up like a YouTube stuff on him because I wasn't super familiar with him. And somebody did like a supercut of a bunch of his one-liners.
I have seen him in person and he's fantastic.
Really? When did you see him in person?
Probably about 15, 17 years ago in Las Vegas.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. And he was fun live.
Oh, he was great. Everything that you were expecting him to be, which is that one guy. And he kind of plays that in, he has a lot of small movie roles. And he essentially always plays Stephen Wright. He plays that guy.
It works.
Particularly like Half-Baked. He's the guy on the couch.
That's his name in the movie. He doesn't have a name.
Yeah, he's a guy on the couch. And he's also the voice of Hey Billy Radio in Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, no kidding.
You hear him throughout the movie as they're listening to the radio. He's the disc jockey playing the K Billy Super Sounds of the 70s Weekend.
So Tony is a very nervous flyer in this little plane in the storm. The pilot is not doing one damn thing to comfort him. And the way he's answering Tony's questions, not helping. Then we cut back to Poet's Corner. Charlie and Harriet go down to dinner. It's extremely full for 9 p.m. Like I said, this was so weird to me. The place was buzzing like it was 5 p.m. here. Harriet looks gorgeous. Red and gold Asian dress that she's wearing with gloves. She's got the gold accessories. Her hair is up. She looks so classy in this scene.
That's exactly the word that I would have used. Yeah, classy.
So classy and pretty here. So after being seated, Charlie excuses himself to the restroom. Harriet gets this real concerned look on her face and gets up and follows him into the hall to see where he's going. On a rewatch, she's making sure he's not running off. First time viewing, you're like, oh, what? She's worried. Like, what is happening? She's going to kill him. Like, you don't know. So back on the plane, the pilot has now dozed off in mid-flight. And Tony screams at him to wake up and startles him.
Well, prior to that, he did explain that he was using the autopilot, and he pointed out the artificial horizon, which is better than the actual horizon.
Do you like when he wakes him up? He's like, whoa, I was having this crazy dream.
Yes, it just reminds me of the old joke where you say, yeah, I want to die like my uncle did, peacefully in my sleep. Unlike the 14 other screaming pussies that were on that plane with him.
Oh my God. So back at dinner, Charlie gets a phone call brought to his table. Harriet has a very concerned look on her face as Charlie is talking to Tony. Tony is on a payphone at the airport. He's landed.
Right. For you kids under 40, phones used to have a cord connected to them. So you'd bring them to the table. And a payphone was one of those phones with a cord, and you had to put coins in it to make it work.
I know. Have you noticed that a lot of the movies we cover on the show have payphones, and it's just like such a thing of the past? It's crazy, but they were everywhere. So Tony tells Charlie Harriet is Mrs. X. He's confirmed it. Tony says it all checks out. And I was like, okay, Tony, buddy, my MVP of the movie. No, it does not all check out. I mean, come on.
Well, technically, no.
What proof does he have? I was so mad.
He is correct in saying that she is Mrs. X. That is factually correct. What's not correct is that she didn't necessarily murder those people.
Well, it was in the 8th highest circulated paper in the world. So he says, I've called the police. They're going to take a while, so sit tight. Charlie panics because the storm cuts the phone call, just done. Harriet asks if everything is okay and gets interrupted by a man saying that they're going to play their wedding song for them, Only You, and they need to dance.
The guy is like an MC, I guess.
Yeah, he's kind of like emceeing the whole dinner thing here.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of crowd work, talking about Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so is here on their 20th anniversary, et cetera, et cetera. I couldn't stop staring at him because he looked like Jay Leno and Fred Willard had a baby together.
I could see that. Totally. Yeah, he was working that room. But what irritated me was they haven't even gotten their food yet. They haven't even had dinner at this point. And they're being told they have to get up and dance. And it's like, I just wanted to, if it was me, leave me the fuck alone and let me eat. You made me wait till 9 o'clock, you bastards. At least let me eat in peace. So back at the airport, Tony stops a man in a car who's getting ready to drive off. And he says he's with the San Francisco Police Department and he would like to commandeer this vehicle. And the man in the vehicle is actor Charles Grodin. And I like in the credits, he's listed as the commandeered driver.
So the whole thing I said about Stephen Wright, always playing Stephen Wright, Charles Grodin in every movie plays Charles Grodin.
But I would argue works for him. He's like, I would like to commandeer your vehicle. And Grodin just makes this great facial expression and looks right at Tony and he goes, no. Tony says, what do you mean no? And the man says, I happen to know for a fact you don't have the right to commandeer my vehicle. His facial expressions through this whole scene have me rolling.
He's partially correct. I had to look this up just to be sure.
Okay, what'd you find?
They can commandeer your vehicle, but it has to be an immediate life or death situation. And even then, they usually won't do it because there's too much legal indemnity involved there. If they wreck it, they're in trouble. If they leave you stranded, they're in trouble. So it's not worth it.
So what you're saying is in the movie Speed with Keanu Reeves, when he commandeers that poor man's vehicle and it gets destroyed, it's okay because it really was a life and death.
A multi-million-dollar lawsuit there. Yes.
I was just wondering. Okay. But here, not so much.
No. Also, is Tony still in San Francisco? Is he within his jurisdiction even?
That was going to be my question because he
just flew several miles out of the city. I don't know, 50, 70 miles.
Yes. And here's the thing. Poets Corner, once you turn off of the main road, was another 40 miles up and in. So not only did they drive way away, then they went another 40 up. He can't be
right. I wouldn't say that was immediate by any stretch of the imagination.
So Tony says, please, can I commandeer your vehicle? And he just goes, no. So good. And so Tony just goes, you're just not going to bend on this commandeering thing, are you? And he goes, no. It just is so funny. Please go watch this movie. I can't tell you how funny it is. I can't. So back at Poets Corner, Charlie and Harriet are dancing to their song, Only You, in the dining room, which was already small and crowded to begin with. Charlie pushes Harriet off onto another man, and the wife grabs Charlie, and they're dancing. The power goes out briefly. It comes back on. Charlie and Harriet then get shoved into a giant wicker-looking double-seater chair that everyone's calling the honeymoon chair. And that couple that you mentioned that was there celebrating their anniversary are saying to them, "Oh, you're going to love it. It's so fun. All you do is get put in this chair and they carry you down the hall. How fun can that be?"
Also, still haven't had dinner.
Yes, Charlie is yelling, wait, I need my dessert. I haven't had dessert. And I'm thinking, you guys didn't even have dinner. What are you talking about? They get ushered up to their room, the honeymoon, go, 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 you know. He's scared to death because he doesn't want to be alone with Mrs. X. So he's freaking out and he's yelling at the, I don't know, bellboy or whoever this kid is that works there, "Stay for a nightcap." And the guy's like, "I really don't think I should." He's like, no, really, stay. And I like that the kid gets scared by Charlie and he runs off. He's like, "Oh," and he runs down the hall and zips around the corner. Charlie's like, "Stay." It's just so stupid. So Harriet locks the door, turns to Charlie and says, "I need to talk to you. I need to tell you something." He looks over and sees an axe in a block of wood next to the burning fireplace in their suite. Now, if you listened to the Jingle All the Way episode, you know that I have a huge problem in movies when people leave a fire burning in a fireplace unattended. Don't like it.
Maybe that's why they had to rush him up to the room, because they just got the fire going for him and didn't want it to be unattended.
Okay, fair. So she says, "I've been meaning to tell you I've been married before." Charlie says, "I already know." He grabs the axe and kind of puts it in front of him and is kind of swinging it a little. He's like, stay away from me. And she's going, "What the hell? What are you doing?" So Charlie drops the axe. The power goes out. Harriet jumps on his back, repeating the phrase, don't go, Charlie, don't go. As he's, moving around in the dark, swinging her around, winds up tossing her into a closet and locking her inside as she's yelling, don't leave, don't go. And then it all clicks. You're like, okay, she just is petrified he's going to leave her. She's not going to murder him.
Now, when he leaves and slams the door, does a bunch of crap fall on top of her?
So we cut to the man now driving Tony to Poet's Corner, and he's just taking his time. You can tell he's not in any hurry. And Tony's getting upset. He's banging on the dash, tapping the dash with his hands. And I can't remember the exact smartass line that Grodin says to him, but Tony says something like, "Oh, does this bother you?" And he says something like, "No, it's my favorite sound," or something snarky.
Something Charles Grodin-y.
Yes. So now Charlie's back in their room trying the phone. And of course, it's dead. The power has been knocked out or whatever. Charlie looks down and sees a note next to the phone. Here we go. "Dear Harriet, I just can't handle the commitment. It's too hard. I'm leaving you. Love, Charlie." So, question for you. We get to see the note, right? The handwriting. Do you mean to tell me that this happened 3 times previous and Harriet does not know what her sister's handwriting looks like?
In the other cases, she typed the letters.
No. This is clearly her sister's handwriting. Like, how does she not know?
Again, it lends to my theory that she knew, or at least suspected.
All right. So just as Charlie's reading this out loud, Rose pops up into frame behind him wearing a rain slicker and holding the axe. She swings it at Charlie and misses, lands on this phone. The axe gets stuck in the phone. Charlie is able to back away and yell to Harriet, "Rose just tried to kill me." So this is when you hear Harriet going, "What? Huh? What's happening? What?" Like, Harriet doesn't know it was Rose. She doesn't, I'm telling you.
Like many women on her wedding night, she was faking it.
Rose yells that she wrote the note. Charlie took Harriet away from her, like all the rest, and she's going to kill Charlie. So we're like, okay, Rose is a nut job. Harriet's not aware. This is what has happened 3 times prior. Got it. The thing I didn't understand, I had another question about, which back to the note. These men are being found dead, or at least one of the three so far has been found dead. This is the movie. The movie's called So I Married an Axe Murderer. There was an axe in the room. I would say this was a weapon of convenience for Rose right now with Charlie. What was the weapon prior? I mean, does Rose make sure she's got axes everywhere she goes? How did she kill these other men? How do we know it's an axe murderer situation? We don't.
I don't know. You'll have to axe her.
So inside, Rose and Charlie are tussling. Outside, we see Tony get dropped off. And even though the police are on their way, because remember, Tony told Charlie, sit tight, they're coming. He tells this driver, I might need to arrest somebody. Can you wait just in case?
So we're supposed to believe that he was able to charter a plane and drive there faster than the local authorities could get there.
So as Charlie and Rose are fighting, they struggle, and he goes out a window and onto the roof. So here we go for this big slam bang finish. Rose goes out onto the roof just as Tony is busting into their room and finds Harriet in the closet. Charlie almost falls off the roof. He's hanging on. Rose is swiping. I hate this so much. She's swiping at his hands with the axe, and it's like landing between his fingers and shit.
Right. And I know you're worried, but then if you look in the end credits, there are some people credited as Charlie's hand puppeteers. So I'm assuming there were not real hands involved in any way.
All right. So this is the one scene in the whole movie where Tony severely drops the ball. And I don't like Tony right here, right now. I do not. We cut to him with Harriet cuffed to a chair in the room, and they're talking. Harriet's trying to explain to Tony what is happening. They're on the roof. Rose is trying to kill him. You can hear them on the roof. And she says to Tony, can you hear them up there? He is so fucking obsessed with being Serpico or some shit right now. Dirty Harry.
I would point out, no, you're right the first time, because he is wearing an outfit that is nearly identical to what Al Pacino is wearing in Serpico. So he's living his Serpico dream right there.
He's got the cigarette lit. He's leaning in. He's interrogating her. And he's like, you don't know how this is. We're going to talk about how this is going to play out. And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, bro. Can you not hear them on the roof? The axe coming down on the roof. It sounds like she's chopping wood up there. So he's living out his weird cop fantasy. We can talk about this, or we can talk about it downtown. Tony, help me help you. Tony, come on, buddy. Charlie climbs back up onto the roof when he sees that her axe gets stuck, and he goes right past Rose and back up the roof. They go over to the other side. Harriet and the cops and a bunch of looky-loos now are gathered below. So he must have finally listened to Harriet and uncuffed her and let her go. Tony runs back inside to help. Charlie and Rose are tussling for control of the axe. My question is, why didn't they just do this inside in the room? They struggled for a minute, and then Charlie went out the window. He's bigger than her and stronger.
Right. Mike Myers, not a big guy by any means.
Well, she's only like...
Amanda Plummer can't weigh more than 105 pounds.
This is what I'm saying. And she's holding the axe up over her head, and he's got her arms, and they're tussling. Why didn't you just take it away from her in the room and call it a day? Pin her to the ground and call it a day?
Smack her in the forehead with a blunt end?
Right? This could have all been avoided if he would not have gone out of the room. So they take turns kicking each other in the crotch, which is pretty funny, actually. Rose falls over the edge of the roof. Charlie is holding on to her with one arm as she's dangling there. Tony opens the window below and grabs Rose and pulls her in as she yells, "Don't let me fall." And I'm like, I mean, maybe because she's a nut, but why? You're trying to kill people? You want to go to jail? I'd be like, just let go. Just let me fall. No, she's like, don't let me fall. That just was weird to me. So Rose gets put into a cop car now. We get a voiceover of Charlie doing a poem as this is happening. He says, Rose, jailbird, happy in her cage, no longer full of rage, she roosts. And I like because he goes, caw at the end of each line when he's saying this poem. It's so stupid.
So your annoying sister-in-law goes to jail for the rest of her life? I guess that's something to be happy about.
So we see Charlie and Harriet now holding each other as Charlie's poem continues. He says, Harriet, sweet Harriet, you acted cuckoo because you thought I would leave you, sweet bird. And then he goes, caw, which makes me laugh every time. We cut to the Rhodes Cafe where Charlie is on stage and he's finishing his poem. We see Harriet sitting on the couch, watching him, smiling. And he says, Harriet, sweet Harriet, so knowing, so trusting, so love, Ed, which is different from, the way he said it previous. Charlie finishes with Harriet, sweet Harriet, the end. He doesn't finish. There's no candle, nothing. It's just a cute little ending. They smile at each other. Everyone claps as the song There She Goes starts up again. Fade out to the San Francisco night sky. Roll credits. The end. So I was wrong about the credits on the floozy thing. I just realized I wrote it here in the back of my notes. We have the first one who confirms Ralph Elliott was Walter the plumber. And then the martial arts guy was Master Cho. Okay. And then the third one was Man with Bimbo.
Bimbo is much different from a floozy.
Hey, we had to get it right.
I think a floozy is more likely to take money.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
All right. Did we cover everything that you had in your notes?
I was wondering why Tony had to break down the door. Couldn't he get a room key from the front desk?
Right. So then, as you know, at the end of every episode, I like to pose 3 questions. So if you will indulge me, we can jump to question 1.
Okay.
What do you think is Mike Myers' funniest comedy? And where does this one fall in the ranks? Now, when I say comedy, I'm thinking of his motion pictures, Wayne's World 1 and 2. This one, Axe Murderer. We've got 3 Austin Powers movies, Shrek and sequels, The Cat in the Hat, and The Love Guru. What is your favorite comedy of his? And then where does this one fall in the ranks?
Well, obviously, Love Guru. No, of course not. No one likes that movie. It's a piece of garbage. As was, Cat in the Hat. I'll never get that 90 minutes back that I spent watching it for some reason.
You watched it?
I was forced to.
You poor soul. All right. So what do you think?
I have a real soft spot for the first Austin Powers because I think, way ahead of the curve on it. I was telling people, you need to go see this movie. It's fantastic. And really nobody did until it came out on DVD.
Second Life on home video. So Austin Powers is your favorite Mike Myers comedy.
Yeah, this Austin Powers, I'm a big fan of animation, so it'd probably be Austin Powers, Shrek, and then this movie would edge out Wayne's World.
Okay. So for me, this is my favorite, but my second favorite is Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, the second one. When I went to the theater to see that, this was back in the heyday of everybody going opening night, packed theaters, and I remember having to go back to the theater 2 more times. So I saw it 3 times because everybody was laughing so often and so loud that you couldn't catch everything that was being said in the movie. And I myself was so hysterical the first time that I was crying and coughing and having a laughing fit so much that I missed half the movie the first time. So that one for me, that feeling and that cinema going experience it hasn't been duplicated. So that has to hold a soft spot for me. That's number 2 for sure. The rest, like you said, Love Guru, Cat in the Hat, nah. Wayne's World, it's okay once in a while. Not really something I love. But yeah, this one's my favorite by far. Everything about it, all I think it's the black comedy aspect of it, the dark humor mixed with the romance and then a little bit of suspense, especially on the first time viewing. The suspense is like the best part. You don't know.
And you are kind of a sucker for romantic comedy.
I am, but I'm finding the older I get, the less girly I am about those sorts of things. I mean, I do love me a yearly watch of Love Actually. But yeah, I'm not rushing out to watch every romantic comedy anymore. I like crazy
And
shit.
hot take, every one of those people in Love Actually, horrible, horrible people.
Question 2. Were you aware that there is a 6-episode miniseries on Netflix from May of 2022 called The Pentaverate, based on the rant from Charlie's dad in this movie?
Never heard of it.
The plot, as listed on IMDb, is an unlikely Canadian journalist finds himself embroiled in a mission to uncover the truth and just possibly save the world himself. It's only 6 episodes. Mike Myers is involved. I feel like we need to watch
or half
this.
hour long?
I don't know, but I feel like we need to check this out. The Pentaverate. I mean, what if it has the Colonel? You know, we're totally going to have to watch this, right?
Yes, I will be watching it.
All right. Question 3. Let's play a couple of rounds of what's worse. I'll go first. What's worse? You start eating your fast food hamburger and you bite into a dirty fingernail with a booger on it. Or
the apple juice in your fridge is actually your roommate's urine sample.
Wait, how long did it take you to realize that, though? Are you just one swig in?
Maybe he's diabetic. It's pretty sweet.
Now, I'm no scientist, but I'm pretty sure that's not how that works.
Okay, you get a video of your DoorDash driver licking your McNuggets 2 days after they've been delivered. Or
you're on a train and the guy in the bunk above you has his colostomy bag rupture while you're sleeping. Okay, so this won't apply to you because you're not a lettuce eater, but you're at your favorite restaurant, you're eating this yummy looking salad, and you're about halfway done when you realize there are bug cocoons on the underside of the leaves of lettuce. Or
you go to KFC and get essentially the same thing because that's what's in their coleslaw.
Oh my God, you have to tell that story. Now that you said that, and you KFC, the Colonel. Oh, please tell the story. Okay. You worked there. Come on.
I did work for KFC for several years. When you made coleslaw, you had to make 50 pounds at a time, and you're supposed to wash and clean the heads of cabbage. Nobody ever really did that. You would just strip off the outer leaves, take the cores out, and huck them in a giant industrial chopper.
Okay.
Occasionally, under some of the inner leaves, there would be the occasional snail or slug that got in there. As you would throw them in the chopper, you would see the big red smear come through on the other side as they were going around. And that's when you would jam a couple of carrots in there to take that color back out.
Oh my God. So
we just referred to it as added protein.
Oh, that's so foul. How often do you think that happened?
Oh, nearly every time.
And you're just one location. Imagine if that happened lots of places, because I would imagine the cabbage came from the same packer.
I'm sure it did.
Oh my God. See, that's the kind of thing like your McNugget thing where you don't see the guy licked it till 2 days later after you've eaten it. Same thing with the KFC. You know how many times I ate KFC and didn't realize I was eating slug bits? I'm so nauseous.
I've never eaten KFC coleslaw.
Well, to be fair, you don't care for it anyway. But that's gross. And I have to now wonder if that still goes on in places like that now. Oh my God, that's so nauseating.
I'm sure it does. It does not stop me from eating the chicken, though, because I crave it fortnightly.
All right, that is going to wrap up our discussion on 1993's So I Married an Axe Murderer. If anyone is interested in checking it out, it is currently, at the time of this recording, available on Amazon Prime and HBO Max. All right, so I want to thank you, sir, for joining me to discuss this movie. I am so happy that I got to do the Valentine's episode with you, my Valentine.
Hey.
All right.
Consider it your Valentine's present.
No. No. We want to thank you all for listening, and until next time, goodbye.
So who's in this Pentaverate?
the Queen, the Vatican, the Gettys, the Rothschilds, and Colonel Sanders before he went tits up. Oh, I hated the Colonel with his wee beady eyes and that smug look on his face. Oh, you're gonna buy my chicken. Oh.
Dad, how can you hate the Colonel?
Because he puts an addictive chemical in his chicken that makes you crave it fortnightly, smart ass.
Hey listeners, Movie Miss here, saying we know you have a lot of options when it comes to podcasts, so we want to thank you so much for listening to ours. Please make sure to find us on our socials and join us, be part of our bad movie conversations. We want to chat with you. We're on Facebook with an official page, as well as a Let's Talk Turkeys discussion group where you can talk with other like-minded individuals who like bad movies. We're on Instagram at Let's Talk Turkeys. Our Twitter handle is at Gobble Podcast. That's GOBBLEPODCAST. And of course, you can always email us direct. We would love to get suggestions from you of movies you would like us to cover. If you want to be a guest on the show, we would love that. So directly, that's Let's Talk Turkeys, all one word, at yahoo.com.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.